Hello, everyone. This is Get Your House in Order, and I'm Elke Rubach. This is a show about having the conversations too many people avoid. Money, structure, leadership, and the courage to make decisions that stick. Because freedom does not come from waiting, it comes from building. My guest today is Amy Lessinger, former president of Remax, a leadership strategist, and the author of The Irreversible Step. She helps high performers step through transition and stop circling potential. Today, we'll talk about why so many people stay stuck and what's comfortable, and how indecision drains wealth and energy, and what it really takes to create a life and a legacy that you don't want to escape from. So, Amy, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Okay, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start talking about this topic, and we only have a few minutes, right? Because otherwise, we're going to stay here for a few weeks. You and I have talked about it before. You led a top major brand,
yes,
and you then chose to walk away.
I did.
What made you realize it was, as you say, the time to take that irreversible step?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I've been so driven to do this work. And let me back up for our audience a little bit. The irreversible step, let me just tell them what that is. And then we can talk about how I, have taken, I've taken many in my life, which is where this work was born from. So the irreversible step, what this means is every single transformation in somebody's life, every single time that they've ever reached their next level, they made a decision and they took action and they shut the door behind them and they never looked back. And that is what I call the irreversible step. But what I found is that as we gain more success, we feel like there's so much more to lose. And so our ability to take risk, our ability and craving for safety becomes a little bit louder than, our drive for fulfillment and meaning. And so I did this work and I've created this work. Let me just back up for the editors. I created this body of work so that people have a framework to step through and get from where they are to where they want to be. It's just in my DNA. And so, yes, I was at the very top of a mountain, the height of my career. And I said, you know what? It's time to build something new. It's time for something more exciting, much more, tied to my purpose. And my purpose in life is to build others. I am obsessed with human performance, the psychology of achievement. I always have been. I am a people builder by nature. And so I found that across my 30 years of experience in business, that the risk aversion for people, it actually is a jailer for them. And it really, really hurts them in ways that they don't even realize. And so when you walk around and you see people, they're kind of numb, they're uninspired, maybe they don't have that spark anymore. That's when I look at it and say, maybe it's time for an irreversible step for you. And so it's a framework. It's a process. They're in the driver's seat. I'm not here to talk anybody into or out of making any kind of change. But typically they come to me saying, I want the change, but I don't know how to get there.
And you know what? Many of the people we work with have expressed at certain point, that they're victims to the golden handcuffs.
Sure.
And if they don't make, and to our listeners, if people don't make the effort or the decision, or at least find the curiosity to speak to someone like you about even the fear itself, right? I think they're giving up on what's possible.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I think too, there's just this general belief, which is false, by the way, that in order to have the life you want, you have to downgrade the one you have. And it's just not true. And so, step one of the irreversible step is literally tell the truth. What do you really want? What's that thing that's keeping you awake at night that you're lying awake thinking, I would really love to do that, but I can't? I can't do that because I've got responsibilities, I've got obligations, I've got the title, all of the things. But inside, you're just unfulfilled and you're unhappy. And then the next step, Elke, you led right into it, is explore what's possible. Our brain is wired to keep us safe. It is biological. And so the fact of the matter is it will sit there and tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't do that thing. But when you start to explore what's possible, you now can open up different neural pathways, literally, so that you can start to dream and start to see what actually could happen in your life instead of just this small container that maybe you've placed it in.
So let me back up. And in your experience, do you see differences between people who are employees, executives, salaried people, and business owners? Like when do business owners face this need for an irreversible step, and when do employees face that?
The framework works for leadership teams, organizations, individuals, and having been an entrepreneur myself, I built a near $1 billion real estate brokerage during the middle of the Great Recession. It was really hard, really difficult. There was a lot of fear, but I took an irreversible step back then as well and said, I'm going all in despite everything that's collapsing around me, and I'm going to help people win no matter what the market conditions are. And that's exactly what we did. And so I understand from a business owner's perspective, literally what happens when you start to build a business and you have achieved a level of success. It's really easy to just sort of get into that autopilot mode. For me, I found that, I was fairly unfulfilled. By the time I felt like I had mastered it, I had built the brokerage, I had, received all the awards, all the accolades, the profit, all of those things. But inside I was like, I want something more. But you know what, Elke, I held on probably for 3 years too long before I made the decision to sell the brokerage. And, I wanted the company to grow beyond me, take it to its next level, because I knew that I was ready for another path. And that's ultimately the path that led me to the RE/MAX presidency. But I held on for so long, and I think part of it was I didn't know who I was without it. I honestly, we start to feel like we are what we do. We are the trophies that are behind us from all of the achievements that we've accomplished along the way. And I chose to sell it. I talk about an irreversible step. I chose to sell it, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. I mean, it was like sort of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take this leap. But I opened to the possibilities. I was really clear. It was like, I want more people to serve. I want a bigger stage, if you will, a bigger population to impact. And that's exactly where it led me. But had I not taken my irreversible step, those doors wouldn't have ever opened, because they would have been closed because I was over here doing this.
So you literally let opportunity go by, and you're a victim of your own indecision, and you're freezing. So I really want people who are listening to this to really stop and, yes, smell the roses, but really check in. Do I feel alive with what I'm doing? Am I happy? And it's not pursue your passion type of thing and hug a tree and dance around. The conversation is serious, and people need to make sure that their livelihood is secure and so on. But I cannot think of any, career-wise or professional-wise, anything worse than just waiting and punching the card until retirement, or living a life. If you're happy with what you're doing, go for it. But literally just counting the days until you can get a pension and be retired, I think it's the least human thing you can do to an employee.
There's so much life out there to be lived. And I believe that we are destined and meant to live a life by design, not by default. Life is gonna go on with your input or not. And I believe that every single person has the capacity to create whatever kind of life that they want. Does it mean that it's always perfect? Does it mean that you don't have obstacles? No, but a life by design is a life of freedom. And that's why I'm so driven to do this work. I've seen it over and over in my life. I've seen it over and over with people that I've helped and companies that I've helped. You know, we're just not meant to stay the same. It's okay to want more. And it's okay to believe that you deserve more. And I think so often, you know, particularly for high achievers, you know, we should be grateful. This is a position that, you know, very few people have the opportunity to ever, you know, achieve and those things. Of course, you can be grateful. Of course, you know, the achievement means something and it matters. But where are you now? Because oftentimes we keep trying to live in version 2.0 when version 4.0 is right over here and at your fingertips. But we're showing up in version 2.0 and it just doesn't match.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the first time you take that step is super scary,
Sure.
Very scary. The second time, less scary. And then you start taking steps as a natural thing because you know that, you know, it's not going to be easy. You know, it's not going to be like a slam dunk, but it's going to infuse life into your day to day.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's many categories. So it's not just career. It could be, you know, purpose and meaning. It could be your health. It could be family and relationships. You know, we take irreversible steps in, you know, many categories of our lives. It's not always just about our work. You know, sometimes it's about other things. And the more we stuff it down, which high achievers are really good at doing because we are get it done, you know, just plow through, motor on, you know, drive the KPIs and the results. And so we tend to stuff these things down. But what I have found is that the more we stuff them down, the heavier they get. They get so heavy. And then now you are really stuck. And so as part of my framework, I have tools. I have tools to help people understand what is their fear trying to protect them from. And now what do you do with it? Because fear isn't your enemy, but you can't keep letting fear lead your life. You know, fear is just there. It's a biological response. It has lots of credibility and lots of things that it brings to the table where you're like, yeah, I can consider that. But you know what else? I'm going to consider this over here. You know, I've done hard things before and I can do them again. So I give them tools and specific actions to take when those things start creeping in and they start to think, you know, I can't do this, or this is really scary. I mean, it's not just, oh, let's stand on the edge of the canyon and take one giant leap and fall off the cliff. People who ignore this whisper inside of them that's trying to come forward, sometimes they do just that. They just say, I can't take it anymore. And now they free fall. You don't want to go through that. You don't need to go through that. There's specific steps that we go through so that now they're like, I'm now ready. Because step 3 is after we've told the truth, we've figured out what's possible. Step 3 is pick your path. Pick your path. What direction are we going to go in? Where are we heading with this? If you could solve just one root problem for yourself, what is it? And so it doesn't mean we're doing anything with it. It's just, yes, I am going to address how unhappy I am in my work. Or yes, I am going to address the issue with my health. Yes, I'm going to address the issue with that relationship. So now you've got a direction. From there, we build a bridge. Because one thing I know about high achievers is they need to understand, how am I going to get to the other side? It's not a perfect plan. It's not a 10-year plan. It's not even a 5-year plan. It's literally, what resources do I have? You know, how can I take this step? What are my gaps? What do I need to bolster up? And so, you know, Elke, with the work that you do, you know, financially, you know, how can I actually make this change? And what does that bridge look like? And from there, we determine what is the single step that you can take that's going to help you embody this new you. You know, is it, yes, I'm going to go ahead and sign the contract. yes, I'm going to go ahead and send the resignation letter. I'm going to commit to that health plan that is a little bit expensive, but I'm going to do it because I know that it will change fundamentally, the nature of my health, or I'm going to have that conversation about that relationship that needs a reset. So it's a whole process that we take people through to get them from where they are to where they want to be, but also cutting through all the noise. It's like people think that this stuff has to take them forever. It doesn't. It doesn't.
And what you're saying, and sorry, what you're saying resonates incredibly, particularly from a financial point of view. Like if people hate their job and they want to change, I always say, okay, hang on, before you quit, let's run numbers, let's remove noise, let's make sure that you can afford the change, you can afford the, if things don't go as expected in the next 3, 6, 10 months or years or whatever, what does it look like, right? So a plan will tell you what, like, best case scenario or worst case scenario, and like, let's promise and over deliver. But to get to that point, people need to be uncomfortable enough. They don't need to be ready, I think, right? But they need to be uncomfortable enough to reach out and figure that if they could do it alone, they would have done it already. There's no need to do it on their own. That's why people like you and I, or so many professionals collaborate to help them work through whatever change that is. But what else is required? Is there internal structure, external structure? Is there, obviously courage, the right team? You talk about alignment. What else does one need to know or do before they make that change?
I think the biggest, that's why it starts in truth. I think the biggest thing is that we're so good at pushing that away. And we are really good at lying to ourselves. This is as good as it's going to get. I should be grateful. I have responsibilities. All those things are true, but are they the deciding factor for you? And when you really get quiet and you tell yourself the truth and you say, I'm unhappy. I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. I can't keep doing this anymore. That is the number one thing that I think people have to come forward with, is that openness to say, I'm going to do something about this. I'm tired of feeling like this, and I want to be shown and understand how I can, number one, feel something different, number two, have something different, because it's possible, completely possible. People do it every day.
Yeah, and I think what I would like people listening to this to hear is that most, if not all of us, in one aspect of our lives, could it be financial, relationship, work, we're ripe for that step. And it's very few who find the courage to do it. And
yeah, I think that's true, Elke. And I think the other thing is that if you look back, if our listeners look back, they've taken an irreversible step before. Just think about it. It's when you said, I'm doing this. And it could have been, I'm showing up for my first day of college and I'm graduating from whatever university you went to, right? It could be, like for me, my degree was in speech pathology and audiology. And I said, I'm going to go into real estate. So no security blanket, no health insurance, all that good stuff. And that was another irreversible step. Everybody's already done this. You've done it before. And I have never met somebody who hasn't taken an irreversible step. Honestly, I've never met a single person. So at the end of the day, it's in you already. You just have to tap into it and find it again.
And own it.
Right? That's right.
So what's the dependence narrative? Like we're living in a moment where people expect someone else, like the government or the employer, or letting the headlines define their mindset or their decisions. How do you motivate? How do you talk to people to say, don't wait for someone else to make the decisions for you? Nobody can decide for you, and nobody else will live the consequences of not deciding. Like if you're dead inside, how do you work with them? Where do you pick them up?
Well, for one thing, I am not necessarily there to compel them, drive them towards change. Really, it's more about tapping into what's already in there. So, why are they raising their hand and saying, you know what, I need help here? Tapping into that deeper, fundamental, who the hell am I and what the hell do I want? Once you tap into that spark, now it becomes a lot easier. Because for a lot of people, they tell themselves the truth for the first time. They haven't told themselves the truth for years. And so really helping that come out is they become self-motivated. The other thing that I would say, Elke, is that freedom, it's my number one value. For other people, it might be something else, but for me, freedom is my number one value. And I really believe that when we give our agency away to be in the hands of others, you can do that as long as you're fulfilled and you're happy and it's meaningful and you're aligned on the vision and the purpose and all of those things. But what you described before, when you asked me the question, that wasn't in the mix. It was sort of like, well, I'm just going to do my time. It's as good as it gets. And I'm just going to wait, until I can retire, which is, by the way, in 12 more years. I mean, that's like a lifetime. So I personally feel like, where are you within your own values and what you value in life? And if you're happy there, I say, oh, bravo, well done. But don't get to the end of your life and be sitting on your porch, rocking in your rocking chair and going, gosh, I should have tried that. I should have taken that risk. I just really wish that I would have repaired that relationship or taken better care of myself or tried to open that business that I always wanted to open, but I just never had the courage to do it. I really look at that and say, you get one life. Run at it like you're on fire for it.
Make it count. Yeah, no, 100%. And this week, the word has been agency. Every person I've talked to, they're like, I need agency. I'm like, it's true. Nobody can do it. I talk about gaining financial clarity, being tax efficient, normalizing the money conversation. That's kind of like table stakes for how we like to work, right?
Sure.
But if people don't want to listen, I can't listen for them, right? We're saying what we can say, and we know the benefits of doing things and planning and getting clear on, the cost of their lifestyle and talking to the next generation about money so they don't splurge or at least squander the money. And it's not because they don't appreciate it, probably. Why would they appreciate it if they don't know what costs were involved in getting the money? So it's having the conversation, simplifying things, removing the noise, sitting down, owning who you are, what do you want to do, what's important to you. And from my side of things, where I think what you do is also incredibly interconnected, is, okay, let's say you lived your life and you were stuck with the golden handcuffs. Now let's talk about retirement. What's the meaning you want to give to your retirement? Like, who are you if you're not the lawyer, the banker, the business owner? What's the meaning of your what meaning do you give to retirement? That's the first one. The second is, how do you want to live it? And who's around you? Do you work with people like that as well?
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing too, Elke, and this one is you've got so many external validators. Society teaches us that the title, the salary, the stuff, the car, the second home, that's all tied to how you're seen societally. Instead of your internal validators, which is, do I feel fulfilled? Am I happy? Am I living my purpose? Am I impacting others? Those are the internal things that actually fill us up. And I believe always in the both and. You can have both a thriving, successful, dynamic career, business, life, company, and feel fulfilled with meaning and purpose and happiness. You can have both. But here is the thing, back to your original thought. Nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it. You have to choose it, and you can choose it. I believe that. I've seen it over and over and over. I'll tell you a quick story. An agent came to me in the Great Recession. He was shifting in his seat. His wife was with him, and he was going to join the company. At that time, I was charging an initiation fee to come in because we did a ton for them when they first started. This was helping agents to sell homes during the Great Recession where everything was collapsing around everybody. And so being a real estate agent at that time was really, really hard. And so he knew that he needed to make a change. He felt like I could help him. I knew I could help him. And so he's shifting in his seat, and his wife kind of elbows him and says, "We'll figure it out, honey." And I'm thinking, what's this about? About 6 months later, I asked him, I said, "Brian, what was going on there?" He said, "We sold our washer and dryer to pay the money." And I was horrified. I was just like, oh my God, they've got 3 kids and all the things. And he said, "I knew that I needed to be in this environment, that I needed to pull my business, up and into its next level." And I just caught up with him. God, Elke, this was, I don't even know how long ago, a long time ago, 13, 14 years ago. I just caught up with him again. He is running a 7-figure business in real estate now. I mean, incredible success story, but he took an irreversible step. And was it scary for him? Yes. And he said, "You know what? I value this more. I'm tired of being in pain, and I'm going to make a change." So it's that he knew nobody was going to do it for him, that he had to do it. And he leaned in and he did the work. I didn't do the work. I gave him the framework. I was right there in the trenches with him, and I helped him build and I helped him understand, but he did the work. And so his agency, he took back his own power by moving forward. And so you don't, it's just not an automatic checkbox. You actually gain fulfillment and happiness and purpose by incremental steps along the way and reinforcing it as you go. You become by going through it. You don't become it by choosing it.
And Brian's wife also, what a great support, right?
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
So a lot of leaders think that courage is a feeling, but you teach it as a system. How do you do that? How do you help someone turn fear into a disciplined, rational process of decision making?
Well, first of all, I help them understand how their brain's wired and why the amygdala is so dang loud, and give them some strategies for how can we actually quiet it down. Once you let fear speak, once you kind of get it all out and you sort of look at it, you go, "Oh, I see." And then part of the strategy is, what is fear trying to keep us safe from? Because again, I'm not telling you that there's no value in fear being acknowledged. It's just you can't let it lead. So from there, okay, now what do I know is true? So, well, I've done hard things before. Or maybe what I'm going to do with this particular fear is I'm going to talk to somebody who's done this before me. And I'm going to find out, what did they do that I could do that would help me with this? And then from there, action. Fear, it gets diminished when you hear it out, and then you take action that's counter to it, if that makes sense. So you just take a micro step, a baby step that's just in the direction you want to move, and you gain calmness, clarity from it. Fear starts to diminish, and you start to rewire your brain of, yeah, I actually can do this. So it's all a series of easy, actionable, no fluff. I do not do fluff. I am such a bottom line person. I am busy just like everybody else. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to put anybody through a framework that is just full of fluffy stuff.
And you also call indecision one of the most expensive habits. What's the actual cost to wealth and teams and legacy when leaders say, I'll get there. I'm almost there.
I'll tell you one, and this one's a little bit of a personal story, but I tell it in my keynotes and in my courses that I teach and all of that. Back when I decided that I wanted to sell the brokerage, I told you that I had hung on to it for 3 years too long. My husband at the time, he knew how unhappy I was. He begged me to sell it. He said, I will take care of everything. Just, I just see that you're unhappy and, you need to make a change. Couldn't do it. I told you why I couldn't do it, and I didn't do it. And I believe that that was a contributing factor to ultimately the loss of our marriage. See, people don't understand that when you aren't showing up as your best self and you're numb and you're checked out and you're just unhappy, everybody around you feels it. And so I would come home at night exhausted, depleted, and then I feel like I would give my family and, more importantly, my relationship the crumbs that were left. And so when people say there's not a cost, there is. There is a definite cost, and it could be in your relationships. It could be a financial cost. It could be a cost in your health, because I also believe this. Your body knows before your mouth is ever willing to say it out loud. So, the cost of that is far greater than just staying the same, I believe. When somebody breaks through to their next level, it changes everything.
That was going to be my next question. When people finally get their house in order, and in this case, it's a mental health house in order, whether it be mental, financial, or emotional, what shifts do you see that in how they lead and how they behave, and how can advisors like you and I help create that alignment faster?
We talk about agency. We talked about it earlier. When you are literally in the driver's seat of your life, when you are literally on purpose, we talk about being on purpose. That's what it means when you're on purpose. Your ability to impact others and have greater meaning inside of yourself expands exponentially, and everything around you transforms. The energy around you transforms, the people around you transform, your business transforms, your life transforms. I mean, if you just think back to a time in your life when you experienced this, you will recall, because I truly, truly believe that everybody understands this fundamentally. But when we get stuck and we get lost and our next level is calling us, especially as we have gained more success, more accomplishments, more accolades, more wealth that's at risk, we stuff it down and we pull it back, when I believe the very thing that will set you free is to take your irreversible step.
So your book, The Irreversible Step, is about decisions that change everything, as we said. Now, the irreversible step sounds a little scary because it sounds like you cannot turn around ever. Do people take step by step, little by little? Is it a big step? Can they turn around?
Absolutely. I mean, again, you're in charge of your life. The reason why I call it the irreversible step is because it fundamentally changes who you are. And so when you think back to, I signed the lease and I opened my company all those years ago, that was an irreversible step. Could you get out of it? Of course you could have got out of it, but you didn't, because you wanted to build that business, right? That's just an example. So certainly, yes, there's nothing in this that's about handcuffs, but really why I call it irreversible is because you are different. You're never going back to who you were before. And that's why I call it irreversible, because it's the transformation. It's the embodiment of who are you now?
And for example, I'm thinking people, particularly in Canada, it's a largely population composed of people that immigrated here. just
Yes.
picking up your stuff and moving. You could call it city, call it province, call it country. That's a big step. So you've done it before.
Huge.
So it's like if it's any comfort. But let me go back to people who might be listening right now and say, I am actually playing small. What's the one step? I'm not saying the irreversible step, but what's the one step they can take this week to start leading and living differently?
Well, I think here's a great question. If you could have it any way you wanted it, what does it look like? If you could have it any way you wanted it, what does it look like? Because until you can't possibly achieve something that you can't see. So first, you have to literally open yourself up to, how can I? That's something that I have used for so many years. I used it with the teams I led, but it's like, how can we? The companies get into this legacy thinking. Well, we can't do it that way. We've always done it this way. I'm like, well, how can we? And why should we? So how can you and why should you? If you just take 15 minutes this week to journal on what's missing in my life, what would make me feel more happy, more fulfilled, and then if I could have it any way that I wanted, what would it look like? And then how can I? You take time with those 4 questions, it's going to crack something open in you that you haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, and then just reach out. And again, don't go at it on your own, because sometimes we're our own worst advisors. We
Sure. And I've got a 6-week course that I take people through where it's very intentional. It's 90 minutes a week. So it's like, give yourself this gift of 90 minutes a week for the next 6 weeks. And the transformations are really, really, really beautiful and really amazing to watch people go through.
What do you say when people say, I don't have 90 minutes?
I'm a big believer in you choose absolutely everything you have in your life, every stress, everything that you have is a choice. Now, I might get a little pushback on that, where they say, someone in my family is ill. Are you telling me that I chose that? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is you choose how you handle that, how you show up for it, and what you make time and space for. And so I have seen people who have incredible stressors, incredible circumstances that by all means, they have every excuse in the book. And guess what? They find their 90 minutes because they want change. And I think I would probably say you're not ready. If that's the excuse, you're not ready. You're probably giving 90 minutes to your favorite TV show. No judgment there. I do it too.
You look up and you're like, you've been there for 90 minutes.
Right.
So these are more excuses than reasons not to do it.
Yeah. I think change is scary for people. And again, people say, "Ooh, gosh, like you're in the driver's seat. You get to pick everything that happens. Nothing's going to happen to you that you don't want to happen."
So you're effectively inviting people to infuse life back into their life.
Yes. Purpose, right? Meaning, a life by design with freedom and happiness and purpose. Yes.
So Amy, to wrap up before we end, let's go through a lightning round. Ready?
Oh boy. Here we go.
And this was not rehearsed. Tell me about a decision that terrified you, but changed everything for you.
I think I shared that already, and that was literally when I chose to sell the brokerage. I was really terrified by that. And that's why I held on for so long. I just could not bring myself to do it. And when I did it, I remember signing the contract going, I can't go back now. And that was a really scary moment for me. But oh my God, my whole life broke open. And in ways that I never would have thought. just unbelievable. And opportunities came to me, and that's ultimately what led me to the RE/MAX presidency. And I mean, that was an incredible journey and an incredible experience. And I just had the opportunity to impact so many people. And it just never would have happened had I not been afraid and done it anyway.
That's awesome. The leadership quality that you admire most?
Those who build others. I believe that the true mark of an excellent leader is to leave people bigger, better, more equipped, more talented than you.
Okay. One daily discipline that grounds you?
I actually really believe in mindfulness, and mini meditation is what I'm going to call it. Before I get ready to start my day, I just have a small 30-second centering, grounding thing that I say to myself that helps me just center and calm my brain and really focus on my purpose and serving others.
Fantastic. Amy, thank you very, very much for all your time today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Any final words?
Thank you, Elke. It has been such an awesome conversation. I knew it would be. I love your work. And, I just want people to understand, go out there and build your life by design, not by default.
Fabulous. Well, here's what I hope you take away from this conversation with Amy Lessinger. Leadership is not about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go. It's about building structure around courage so your decisions stick and your life starts working for you, not against you. The truth is, in life and in finances and everything else, indecision is the silent thief of both wealth and peace. And every time you delay a decision in business, money, life, you name it, you're trading clarity for comfort, and comfort never compounds. So stop circling and stop waiting for a rescue from the market, from the government, the next better time. Those don't show up. Freedom is not found in external fixes, and it's built on quiet discipline of people who decide, act, and lead with conviction. We're really inviting you to be part of the minority and be different and own your life. If you're ready to align your structure with your purpose, reach out to Amy or to us. And this is what we do every day. And with clients who want clarity, control, and freedom. If you're ready to align your leadership, your influence, your next chapter, just have a conversation. It really starts with a conversation. Do not wait for life to push you. You lead yourself forward. I'm Elke Rubach. This is Get Your House in Order. And until next time, we hope you heard something that resonated and that you're going to take ownership that will help you change everything. Thanks for listening.